Happy Thursday, Razorback fans. 2 days away from Arkansas at BYU at Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo, Utah. 2:30 kickoff. It's going to be on ESPN. There's a chance of it being on ABC, but of course, Arkansas has lost 3 games in a row, so I don't know if they want to put that team on the ABC game. So you still get an ESPN. It's a cool game. Arkansas BYU. BYU is 4-2. Arkansas is 3-3. Both teams need a win. We've talked about that this week a lot. This is a big game. You don't want to say must win because every game should be must win, but this is, that type of feel, especially for Arkansas, and I'm sure for BYU they feel that way as well. Kalani Sitake, their head coach, he said that, we're in the same boat as Arkansas, and so should be interesting. Robert and I got Robert Stewart with me. I'm Mason Choate. This is the Gridiron Hawks podcast. Robert and I were talking before this recording how we don't really have much of a gauge for this game. It's hard because it is an out of conference opponent, BYU, an independent team. So it's hard, especially mid-season, to flip from, hey, we're covering, an SEC team. We've got a good gauge on the other SEC teams, specifically SEC West, and then you're going to play a team like BYU, and I'm sure we'll feel the same way later on when they play Liberty here in a few weeks. But from what we can tell, this is a BYU team that has a talented quarterback. They're a very, very veteran team. They've got some big guys. Sam Pittman talked about how one of the things that stands out to him the most is their size, because he was asked about, their stats, like what kind of stats from BYU stands out to you? And he said, they don't really stand out to me as far as stats go, but their size, that's what stands out to me. So Arkansas is they're gonna have to be on their A game for this one. And we'll get to that. I want to talk today about why I think Arkansas will win this game. Robert, you can take it wherever you want, but that's the stance I'm going to take. I think the Hogs are going to get a win. I think they'll bounce back going into the bye week. But kind of tell me how you're feeling right now, Robert. You said before we recorded that, you don't really know how to feel, but kind of go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so I mean BYU's been in the top 25 for most of the season, right? So it would that would indicate that they are a good team, but at the same time, I feel like Arkansas could easily just flex the SEC card, you know? Like one thing you said we don't really know how to gauge uh BYU compared to other SEC teams. One thing we have heard leading up to the game throughout the week is the one tangible similarity is size. We've heard Jordan Dominic say it. We've heard Sam Pittman mention it. You know, these guys, at least the offensive line, are SEC sized. So there is that, but and I think the line moving from BYU being the favorite to now Arkansas being the favorite, it confuses me even further. Like I just think there are so many outcomes that could happen, and I mentioned it before we started, but I think and I've written about it. I feel like countless times this year, but I feel like the turnover battle is going to play a huge factor in this one. I mean, it's been weeks since I say weeks. I guess they turned Alabama over the Dwight McGlothern interception. But it feels like weeks since they've had a meaningful turnover on defense, right? Because I don't think anything came of that McGlothern interception because it was so far in their own territory. But I mean, they're gonna have to come out uh, on the positive side of the turnover margin, and they're gonna have to be able to do something with those turnovers because I mean that was key in those first two wins. The three turnovers to no turnovers in the Missouri State game is the only thing that kept that one close, and I mean just one turnover in the three games since, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they've lost all three.
Yeah, as far as turnovers go, it's going to be tough because BYU, as far as turnovers lost, they're third in the nation, tied for third. They've only turned the ball over twice, and that was two interceptions from their quarterback, Jaron Hall. Um, Arkansas, They've turned it over 8 times. That's tied for 54th in the nation. As far as turnovers forced go, both teams not that great. Arkansas has a slight edge. They've forced 7 turnovers. That's tied for 88th. And then BYU is forced 6. That's tied for 106th out of 131 teams. So it's going to be tough to get BYU to turn the ball over. Like we mentioned, veteran team, experienced. They don't really put the ball in danger, it seems like. And the two times that it has, it comes from your quarterback. And, at some point that's just going to happen. So and you mentioned how BYU is a ranked team, or they have been a ranked team for most of the season, and I kind of want to look at their schedule and say I feel like they were ranked for most of the season because of one win, and that was over Baylor in overtime. They got a win over South Florida, who I don't know if South Florida has won a game this season. They've got a win over Baylor, who that was a very, highly touted matchup going into that. Then they lost by 21 points to Oregon. Then they beat Wyoming, who I looked at their schedule. They've got a couple other wins, but they don't look like incredible. They've got a win over Utah State, 38-26, where they had to struggle, and Utah State has a loss to an FCS team. And then they lost to Notre Dame last weekend. So I really think that Baylor win kept them in. Of course, they were ranked preseason, but I think once they, started 2-0 with a win over Baylor, and then they lose to Oregon, I think they were just ranked because of that win over Baylor. They're still a good team. I'm not saying that they're not a good team, but we talk about rankings. Rankings are really just based off of who you beat.
Right, and it sounds like neither team has been particularly impressive since the second game of the season.
Yeah, no, I can get behind that. Um, you talked about the turnover battle. There's something else I wanted to bring up. Oh, BYU's rush defense. This is where Arkansas is going to win the game, Robert. Um, Arkansas is going to have to run the ball. That's what Arkansas wants to do, especially with KJ Jefferson at quarterback. I thought it was, Malik Hornsby ran the ball a lot, but they were letting him air the ball out. And I don't see why they don't let KJ Jefferson do that. Like, you saw them take more shots down the field with Malik Hornsby than they have in a single game with KJ Jefferson this year. So maybe that game opens up the offense either way, no matter who the quarterback is, or maybe they were just down by so much that they were trying to make something happen. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with the hole they were already in. It was a slow start. I mean, that's tell you what, if Arkansas is going to beat BYU, they are going to have to address that because it's been 2 straight weeks with disastrous starts. They definitely need to find that first quarter like they played in Arlington where they scored twice. Um, but yeah, I mean, the reinsertion of KJ Jefferson into this Razorback offense is, of course, going to make the rushing attack more dynamic. I mean, not to say Malik Hornsby isn't a great runner because he is, but I mean, KJ Jefferson is just so powerful as a runner, and I mean, they're going to use him probably 15 plus times, and of course that should open up some good looks in the passing game too. I mean, again, Hornsby made some great throws when he needed to, but he also missed a couple. So, it's you're getting QB1 back. It's huge. I think it's going to be very beneficial for all facets of the Arkansas offense. And I mean, if they can just hold on to the ball, extend drives, keep the defense off the field, then I mean, one would think they'd be, in line for a win.
Yeah, keeping the defense off the field would be huge. I look at it this way. BYU gives up 175 rushing yards per game. That's ranked 100th in the nation. Arkansas has to take advantage of that because BYU's passing defense is good. They're giving up less than 200 yards passing to opponents. That's good for 25th in the country. They're giving up 190 yards passing to opponents this season. So Arkansas, they're gonna have to, go in there like you're an SEC team. You're built like an SEC team. Go in there and just run the ball down their throats. Control the time of possession. Like you said, keep your defense off the field because your defense is easily the weakest part of your team. It's not even close. You got to keep those guys off the field. Don't give them a chance to give up, a big play, a momentum shifting play in front of that incredible crowd. It's gonna be a whiteout. It's gonna be a sold out crowd. Don't give BYU a chance to stick in the game. Like you can't get off to a slow start. That was something I asked Sam Pittman about. He said, and he was like, "Yeah, we've been working on that." Okay, well, it's not working, and so he said that they're still gonna focus on it some more. Um, they've been outscored 49-0 to start the past 2 games until they scored their first points.
It's worth noting that one of the things he did say in his long-winded answer to you is that maybe they're going to consider electing to receive if they win the coin toss. Because, we brought it up last week. It's like, one thing that Arkansas is really good at this year is winning the coin toss. And they've always elected to defer, which, I generally I agree with, but when the first quarter has been so atrocious recently, maybe you need to change things up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean they got to do what they can. You got to figure something out. It's going to help to have KJ back, but offensively, you're gonna have to get out to a hot start. What was it? I think they haven't scored a touchdown on an opening drive since the South Carolina game. I might be wrong on that, but I think that was the last time they scored a touchdown on the opening drive of the game. They're Arkansas. They just they've got to start fast. If you dig yourself in a hole like this, it's gonna look like it did against Mississippi State. You dug yourself in a hole against Alabama. You were able to get back in it because, you had the help of your home crowd. Of course, Bryce Young went out. That there were different factors going into that, but when you dig yourself a hole at Davis Wade Stadium, you're not digging out of it. If you dig yourself a hole at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, you're not digging out of it. So get off to a hot start. I think they can. I think Arkansas is going to go into this game wanting to prove something, not only to people, but I think they want to prove to themselves, hey, we're still a good football team. And so I really think that they've changed their mindset after these 3 losses. I feel like with Sam Pittman, it's just you can tell he's down, but you can tell he's hungry. Like he's talking like we're doing whatever we can to figure this out. And what I really liked from him was we've identified the problems. He said this on Wednesday. We've identified the problems, and now we have to go and fix them in the game. Like you can only do so much to fix things in practice. You got to go in there, fix the problems in the game. They know what's going wrong because they've had so much going wrong that now they can see like, hey, these are all of our issues. Let's fix them. So I think that they have a chance of doing that this Saturday. And tomorrow on the Gridiron Hogs podcast, we'll talk about, score predictions. We'll have our Bet Saracen lines, odds, player props, all that. We'll give our score predictions, and we'll also have our score prediction story over at HawgBeat.com. But I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. I'm picking Arkansas to win this game. I'll say that right now, Robert.
I mean, based on everything you said today, it all checks out. So I can't fault you for doing that. I need some more time to think about it because the thing is, I just need to be convinced of something happening, and I'm not convinced of anything in this game happening yet.
As far, what do you mean convinced of something happening? Like,
I like I just don't feel strongly about anything that might happen.
like
You
the
know, like
game being
I just
played
don't feel
or
strong
what?
enough to make a prediction yet.
Okay. All right. We'll end with that. We got a couple notes to hit. Want to remind you about our sponsors over at myperfectfranchise.net. But before we do, we have a programming update for the loyal listeners of the Gridiron Hogs podcast. We are going to move after the bye week. After the bye week, we are going to move to 3 episodes a week, no longer daily. To put it simply, daily made sense through fall camp and early on in the season because there was a lot going on. News coming out every day, a lot of things to get to. You didn't really know the team yet. A lot of stuff to talk about. Now we're at the point, after the bye week, Arkansas will be 7 games in. You know who the team is. There's not really any news coming out throughout the week. The practices, we're not seeing anything interesting aside from, freshman wide receivers moving to defensive back. So it makes sense to go to 3 episodes a week, not only because, that's slightly easier on us and our schedule. But also what it is we don't want to be sitting here and repeating ourselves over and over again. And we don't want to have those episodes where it's like, can Rocket Sanders hit 1,000 yards? I feel like that's just pointless and it wastes everybody's time, because it's like he's either going to hit it or not. If we talk about it, it's not going to make him get it. So stuff like that. We're going to move to 3 days a week. It'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and that will happen after the bye week. All right. MyPerfectFranchise.net, very thankful for their sponsorship on our podcast. If you're a displaced corporate executive or wanting to put your career in your own hands, call Andy Luedecke. He's a longtime Rivals member and franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses. He uses that expertise and knowledge to help others find their American dream through a very thorough and free consultation process. Call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands. It's 100% free, so you have absolutely nothing to lose. His number is 404-973-9901, or visit myperfectfranchise.net to get started today. It is a great opportunity. It's a thorough process, and they'll help you get set up for success in the future. All right, we'll talk to everybody tomorrow on the Gridiron Hogs podcast.